Phase 1. The assumption most viewers get wrong. You think a super yacht sinks because of one dramatic failure. A storm, a collision, a single catastrophic mistake. In reality, the largest super yacht incidents don't begin with disaster. They begin with small decisions that feel harmless at the time. A delayed inspection, a skipped warning, a cost-cutting choice that won't matter this trip. And that is exactly how the Yogi, the largest super yacht ever recorded to have sunk in this case study, stopped being a symbol of luxury and became a controlled investigation into layered failure. If you skip the logic behind what happened, you miss the real lesson. And worse, you repeat the same pattern in different forms, whether in maritime operations, engineering decisions, or even high-value asset management. But if you follow this breakdown in order, you'll understand how a vessel worth hundreds of millions can move from stability to irreversible failure, step by step. And more importantly, you'll understand how each phase could have been stopped. Let's go through it carefully. Phase 1. Pre-departure decisions that set the risk level. Step 1. Review of structural integrity reports. Why it matters. Every major yacht operation begins on paper, not water. Structural reports determine whether hidden fatigue exists in hull sections or stabilizer mounts. What goes wrong if skipped? Minor fractures expand under load. What looks like luxury vibration becomes structural stress amplification. Pro tip: insiders don't just read the latest report. They compare the last 3. Patterns matter more than snapshots. Step 2. Weight distribution planning. Why it matters. Super yachts are extremely sensitive to load imbalance, especially with luxury modifications added over time. What goes wrong if skipped? Uneven ballast leads to microtilts that strain the hull during long-distance travel. Pro tip: experienced engineers simulate guest load scenarios, not just empty vessel balance charts. Step 3. Weather routing verification. Why it matters. Modern routing systems are predictive, not absolute. What goes wrong if skipped? A seemingly calm route can shift into high-wave zones with little warning. Pro tip: the safest captains don't avoid storms entirely. They avoid convergence zones where multiple weather systems collide. At this stage of the Yogi's timeline, nothing looked dangerous. And that's exactly why Phase 1 is the most critical. Phase 2. Departure and early warning signals. Step 1. Initial stability checks after leaving port. Why it matters. The first 30 to 60 minutes reveal whether weight distribution and propulsion systems are aligned. What goes wrong if skipped? Small alignment errors compound into vibration fatigue over time. Pro tip: engineers often listen more than they observe. Engine harmonics reveal early imbalance. Step 2. Monitoring ballast system response. Why it matters. Ballast systems adapt constantly to sea conditions. What goes wrong if skipped? Delayed response creates slow tilt correction failure. Pro tip: a healthy system adjusts in milliseconds. Anything slower is a warning, not a comfort. Step 3. Early hull stress readings. Why it matters. Sensors detect pressure variation before physical deformation becomes visible. What goes wrong if skipped? Structural stress builds silently until thresholds are crossed. Pro tip: in many incidents, alarms did go off, but were dismissed as sensor noise. At this point in the Yogi's voyage, small inconsistencies reportedly began appearing. Nothing alarming on its own, but together, they formed the early pattern. Phase 3. Mid-voyage escalation phase. Step 1. Cumulative stress evaluation. Why it matters. Stress is not linear. It multiplies under repeated wave impact. What goes wrong if skipped? What starts as flex becomes fatigue cracking. Pro tip: the most dangerous number in marine engineering is not peak stress. It's repeated moderate stress cycles. Step 2. Stabilization system overload detection. Why it matters. Stabilizers compensate for roll, but they have operational limits. What goes wrong if skipped? Overworked stabilizers lose efficiency, making the vessel fight itself in waves. Pro tip: insiders reduce speed slightly before stabilizers reach maximum workload, not after step 3. Propulsion strain analysis: why it matters. Engines and propellers respond to changing resistance in water density. What goes wrong if skipped? Cavitation increases, leading to efficiency loss and mechanical wear. Pro tip: a sudden increase in fuel consumption at steady speed is often the first silent red flag. During this phase, conditions for the Yogi became increasingly unstable, not because of one failure, but because multiple systems were compensating for each other simultaneously. Phase 4. Critical Failure Cascade. Step 1. Structural resonance buildup. Why it matters. Resonance occurs when wave frequency aligns with hull vibration frequency. What goes wrong if skipped? Oscillation amplifies instead of dissipating. Pro tip: engineers call this the invisible hammer effect. Small forces that suddenly become destructive. Step 2. Ballast lag amplification. Why it matters. If ballast adjustments are delayed, tilt correction becomes reactive instead of preventive. What goes wrong if skipped? The vessel begins chasing balance instead of maintaining it. Pro tip: once ballast becomes reactive, stability is already compromised even if the ship still feels controllable. Step 3. Emergency protocol delay. Why it matters. Emergency systems are only effective if activated early. What goes wrong if skipped? Delayed escalation turns manageable instability into crisis conditions. Pro tip: the most common failure in large vessels is not mechanical. It is delayed decision-making. This is the phase where the Yogi's situation reportedly transitioned from instability to irreversible escalation. Phase 5. Final breakdown sequence. Step 1. Loss of synchronized stabilization. Why it matters. Stability depends on coordination between ballast, stabilizers, and propulsion. What goes wrong if skipped? Systems begin working against each other instead of together. Pro tip: when synchronization fails, adding more power often makes the problem worse, not better. Step 2. Hull breach progression. Why it matters. Once structural integrity is compromised, water ingress accelerates damage. What goes wrong if skipped? Fluting shifts internal weight distribution instantly. Pro tip: water inside a vessel is not just weight, it is moving weight, which is far more destabilizing. Step 3. Evacuation timing window. Why it matters. The difference between safe evacuation and emergency evacuation is minutes. What goes wrong if skipped? Panic reduces coordination and increases risk. Pro tip: the safest evacuations are always initiated before conditions feel urgent. At this final stage, the Yogi ceased being a controllable environment. The system had exceeded its ability to self-correct. Traps to avoid in understanding incidents like this: first, don't assume large vessels fail suddenly. They fail gradually, then suddenly. Second, don't focus only on weather or external causes. Internal system imbalance is often the real trigger. Third, don't underestimate small warnings. In maritime engineering, there is no such thing as an irrelevant alert. Fourth, don't confuse luxury with invulnerability. The more complex the system, the more points of silent failure exist. Final takeaway and viewer engagement: if you followed each phase in order, you can see the pattern clearly. Nothing here was random. Every stage built pressure on the next until recovery was no longer possible. Now I want to ask you something directly. Have you ever seen a situation in real life where small ignored warnings turned into a much bigger failure later on, whether in travel, business, or something personal?